Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome back to It's Poppin', where we talk about everything pop-up camper related. So in this video, we're going to show you guys how to do another cool pop-up camper mod. Specifically, we're going to install a 12-volt power panel. So this thing's pretty cool. It's got kind of four things going for it. It has an on-off switch to control the whole panel, but then it also has a voltmeter to kind of keep an eye on the voltage of your 12-volt battery. And then it's also got two USB plugs for charging phones and other electronics. And then finally, it's got a 12-volt socket or cigarette lighter type socket. So if for whatever reason you need to charge or plug in something that uses one of those, you can do so. So the best thing about this is that it enables you to, and what we're going to use it primarily for, is to charge our phones if we didn't have shore power plugged into the pop-up. So in this video, we're going to go over a couple things. First and foremost, we're going to cover some considerations on where you might want to install this. And then secondly, we're just going to show you, how to wire it up and then how to get it all installed and working so that you can do this modification yourself. Alright guys, so here we have the switch panel. And as you can see, we kind of have the switch on the left, the voltmeter here, and then of course our dual USB and our, cigarette lighter or socket plug for the 12 volt. So I'm going to show you how I have this wired up, at least up until the point that we can wire it until we get it installed in the camper and connected into the 12 volt system that's already in the camper. So I'm going to flip this over, and keep in mind the switch is now on the right hand side. And just a note, 3 of these have positive negative indicators on them, and it would appear as though 3 of them have a color delineation between the positive and negative. So at least for these, the negatives are gold and the positives are silver, and that kind of came in handy for the switch, which actually has 3 connection points. So I also went a step further for myself just so I could remember, but negatives at the top where the gold is at and positives at the bottom. Now, how the diagram recommends that this is wired up is, of course, have all your negatives together. So let's see here. So we have a negative, let's see, the negatives on the left here, and then that's going to run to the negative up here. Now the reason I don't have this one connected in is because, it'll go up the top here, this will go in there, and then of course I'm going to have another wire leading into the 12 volt system within the camper. So I'm not going to crimp that down until I figure out the length of the negative wire continuing on. So, but nevertheless, that'll go up here and that'll tie in here. Now, one note I should tell you guys is that for the connection points that I have 2 wires going into, I'm using a 1210 size. Whereas if there's just one wire going into it, I don't know the technical terms, but it's just using a 1614. So just of note if you're doing this for yourself. So that's the negative side of things. Now the positive, same thing. Positive, 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 and however, the positive is going to terminate at this bottom one, the bottom connector in the row of 3 here. Now what's different is then I'm going to take another one of these 1416 connectors, put that on the middle connection point, and then run our positive wire from the middle one here onto our 12 volt system in the camper. So once again, that's why that's not completed. What I'll do is we can go back to the camper, find our mounting point. Of course I'll have to take the wires back off, and we'll also take these nuts off, drill our holes, insert our switch panel here, pop our nuts back on, and then we can continue on wiring in, and then of course wiring into the 12-volt system for the camper. All right guys, so welcome inside the pop-up. So what we decided to do is put our power panel on the wall that is on the left-hand side of the door when you're coming in, and just under the stove, which is right here. And that way it's kind of easily accessible when you're outside. You can flip it on and take a look at your power, or maybe if you lay a phone over here or something, you can check that easily. So we chose this spot because A, you know, it was a spot that made sense, but also B, as you'll see in a second, there we have access to a 12-volt line, pre-established or pre-run line that actually feeds the outside light here. So that's what I'm going to tap into, and that conveniently runs on the inside of this cabinet. So what I decided to do is drop it down about 3 inches, because there's a little there's a wood piece about 1 inch down, and then we have to avoid our gas line. So I dropped it about 3 inches down, and then I just centered it. So at least on ours it was 6 3/4 going each way. And then what I did is I took all of like the plugs and sockets and voltmeters and everything out of I don't know, I guess you want to call this the bracket that came with everything. And that way I could lay this on here and then trace out the 4 lines we had. What I also did is I dropped a level on top to make sure it wasn't too off level, and that way it'll look nice and level and even. All right, so what we're going to be doing next is, of course, drilling our 4 holes out, and we're going to be using a 1 1/8 inch I don't know, circular drill bit or whatever to achieve that. And once those are out, we'll of course be able to plug in our kind of power panel here.
Yeah.
Alright, so now that we got everything installed in the cabinet, we are going to kind of get these, I don't know, pigtails back installed and in the proper spot. So let's hope I put everything where it needs to go. And what I did in addition is, now that I know how far I have to go, which is right to this wire right here, I just made maybe a foot for each positive and negative. All right, so I went ahead and disconnected both the battery as well as the 30 amp plug for the camper. And now what I'm going to do is just cut these. We'll strip them down. All right guys, so we're going to run the negative, at least in our camper, to our the white line, the white wire, and then we're going to run our positive, or our red, into kind of this bicolor black and white wire that we have. All right guys, so what I elected to use to connect our positive and negative wires running from our panel here into our 12-volt lines, specifically that light, were just some of these, I guess, I don't know if you call them barrel connectors, but once again, these are the 12-2 size, and then they're crimped down. Figured those would be a little bit more stable and you know, road resistant compared to just your wire nuts. So I put those in, crimped them down, and then I threw, for example, on the positive wire here, just some electrical tape, and then I'll go ahead and throw some black electrical tape on this one, and we'll call it good. Alright guys, so the battery is connected back up. Let's see if it works. Alright, looks like the switch is lighting up. We got some voltage. I brought out a USB charger, so I'll plug that in and grab my phone. And alright, here we go. Alright, so it appears everything works. There are some screws that come with this, just some little Phillips head that go in on each of the four corners just to tighten the faceplate on a little further. So I think I'll run those into the cabinet and we'll call it a job well done. Alright, so funnily enough, the only thing I could find that still uses one of these socket plugs, other than like an adapter to some more USB plugs, is a GPS that we have. So, and I don't know if you can see, but that turned on no problem, so that's good. And then I grabbed, well, here's the phone charger again. Yep, that's going again. And then finally I just grabbed some camera batteries and plugged that in. And yep, those turned on as well. So we got three things plugged in. The voltage is definitely dropping now, but it looks like everything is working when it's fully loaded down. Alright guys, so that's it for this project. Cool thing about this modification is that, of course, you can charge, your phones and other electronics when you're not hooked up to shore power. So when you're boondocking and all you have is that 12-volt battery to power things, then of course, like I said, you can charge stuff. And it has the added benefit of being able to check your voltage on your battery. That way, if you think you're getting kind of low, you can actually verify that. And then of course, with the rocker switch, the on-off switch, you're able to completely power that down, so that way it's not being a parasitic draw on your battery. Whereas if it didn't have that on-off switch, it'll have a little bit of drain if you have a voltage meter or anything plugged in or whatever. So that's the cool thing about this modification. And it also has the added benefit of almost being like an extra outlet in that spot that we put it. Before, there was no outlet there, so you couldn't, charge your phone and easily access it when you're doing stuff outside. So we kind of got an extra outlet there because, of course, when you're plugged into shore power, your shore power is hitting that converter and then sending that power into your 12-volt system as well. So cool modification that works both on the battery and shore power. So if you guys have any questions, let me know. And hopefully we'll see you in the next video. If not, hopefully we'll see you out there camping. Thank you.